Cześć, witam Was serdecznie w nowym filmie na moim kanale. No i jak widzicie po tytule, mimo iż myśleliśmy, że na moim kanale prawdopodobnie kolejny filmik o Ruby Franke i Jodie Hilderby się nie pojawi. Możliwe, że myśleliście tak jak ja, że kolejny update pojawi się za parę lat, kiedy dowiemy się dokładnie, ile kobiety będą przebywały w więzieniu. No ale słuchajcie, okazuje się, że wszystkie dokumenty, dowody i wszystkie filmy z kamerek policjantów zostały wstawione do internetu. I po prostu internet wręcz tonie w ilości dowodów przeciwko Ruby i Jodie. Więc jako iż na tym kanale lubimy zagłębić się w każdą sytuację, oczywiście wstawię Wam te filmiki, porozmawiamy sobie też o rozmowach telefonicznych, to akurat dzisiaj. Będą też filmiki z aresztu Ruby, jak odnaleziono jej dzieci w domu zamknięte i będziemy też, słuchajcie, czytać nawet jej pamiętnik, więc to wszystko będzie podzielone na oddzielne filmy, ponieważ stwierdziłam, że jakbym miała wszystko wrzucić do jednego, to wydaje mi się, że niektórzy mogliby się znudzić w połowie czy coś, a tak każdy filmik będzie miał oddzielny tytuł i klikniecie na to, co Was interesuje. Jeżeli nie wiecie, o czym mówię, nie jesteście na bieżąco, to odsyłam Was do całej playlisty Ruby Franke, tam się wszystkiego dokładnie dowiecie, o co chodzi, a dzisiaj chcę Wam pokazać nagrania audio z rozmów telefonicznych, które były wykonane tuż po areszcie Ruby. I pierwsza rozmowa telefoniczna, którą usłyszycie, to rozmowa Ruby z Franke tuż po jej areszcie, dosłownie dzień po.
An inmate at Purgatory Correctional Facility. This call is subject to recording and monitoring. If you don't wish to talk, hang up now.
After less than 24 hours in jail, Ruby makes a call to her husband, Kevin, who reminds her the call is being recorded.
Okay, well, you know that this phone call is being recorded.
Yes, that will come out. That will come out. Are we in the news?
It sounds like at least you're in the news. I don't know about me. I don't know what he's talking about. But.
In early conversations with Kevin, Ruby calls her arrest a witch hunt.
I'm wondering if they went to Sherry to, ask her questions.
I don't know.
These bookings are public.
I know they are. And a couple months ago, Business Insider was reaching out to me, and I ignored their email, but I'm going dark.
This is a witch
I'm not at BYU. I'm not at BYU anymore, so I don't know how they're going to find me.
Yeah, maybe it was a blessing. This is a witch hunt. The devil's been after me for years. Adults have a really hard time understanding that children can be full of evil and what that takes to fight it. You've seen what it takes to fight evil. It's not the person you're fighting. And it can look like something it's not. And you've been there, you know that. And so I don't know any adults who are going to see the truth. So I'm calm about this, and I just pray that you'll hang in there.
Jak mogliście usłyszeć, obydwie strony, bo i Franke i Kevin, są bardzo spokojni. I według mnie, nie wiem, czy dobre jest to określenie powiedzieć, że jest to dziwne, ale przypominam, że Kevin powiedział, że nie wiedział, co się dzieje w domu. Nie wiedział, że Franke i Jodie znęcały się nad jego dziećmi. Nie wiedział, co tam miało miejsce. I bardzo spokojnie rozmawia tu z żoną, która wydaje się być w ogóle nieporuszona wszystkim i jedyne, co ją obchodzi, to to, czy media wiadomości o niej mówią. Mówi też trochę o Sherry, czyli o ich najstarszej córce, pytając się, wiecie, tak spekulując, prawda, czy policja będzie z nią rozmawiała. Tak jakby może bała się, że będą z nią rozmawiać, co jest oczywiste, że dziewczyna byłaby przesłuchiwana, ponieważ sama wiedziała, co się dzieje w domu i dlatego też się od tego odizolowała, jak mogła. Następna konwersacja ma miejsce dzień tuż po tej, czyli 2 dni po areszcie Franke.
The most upsetting thing is that I am completely misunderstood. That is the most horrible feeling. Like my own family misunderstands me, they misinterpret me, and poor Jodie, they misinterpret her, they misunderstand her. She puts her neck out on the line for people, and then they get mad at her. I mean, it is just horrendous. It's horrendous.
He's 35 years in this, and he said, even if you are acquitted and are released, they will place legal restrictions on your access to the under 18 children.
I figured such. I figured such. God told me when I was driving before I called you. I didn't have any information. I didn't know anything, and the Spirit said, your children are going to be removed. And I cried out loud. I'm like, no, I'm not done. I'm not ready. And God told me I'm done. And I just, So Satan has taken everything away from me that I love. And I'm a good woman. I don't do naughty things. I'm a really good girl.
Zwróćcie uwagę, że podczas tej rozmowy Franke broni Jodie. Razem pracowały, razem znęcały się nad dziećmi, ale Ruby tutaj nadal jej broni. I dlaczego mówię nadal? To dlatego, że w kolejnych głosówkach, które będą z jej siostrą, usłyszymy, jak Franke wszystko zmienia i nie stoi już po stronie Jodie, tylko widzi, że została wykorzystana, a raczej ona uważa, że była wykorzystana, zmanipulowana, bo takie właśnie też podejście podjęła w tej całej sytuacji, że to nie ona chciała to wszystko robić, tylko Jodie po prostu potrafiła nią zmanipulować. Ale zanim to jeszcze ostatnia rozmowa z Kevinem.
I can't say everything that I want to say, but I really did feel like the arrest was like a rescue. Like I just felt so many angels around, and it was like a relief. It was just really kind of surreal, kind of strange. But I just keep thinking about, President Nelson's talk, things celestial, and I know he said in the past about myopic thinking, and he's given a lot of context to, how small this life really is, and I'm just so grateful. How many people, will go to the grave not having woken up, and I want to use this time, and I am using this time to change, to repent, and to do what I can to let the Lord know I love him and my family, and I've had many experiences here to kind of guide my thinking.
No i jak słyszeliście, w tej rozmowie Franke bardzo skupia się na swojej wierze, bo przypominam, że rodzina Ruby była bardzo religijna i Jodie też potrafiła to ponoć wykorzystać, właśnie tą religię. No i tutaj ona bardziej mówi o tym właśnie wykorzystaniu czasu w więzieniu, do refleksji i tak dalej. No ale teraz przejdźmy do rozmowy z jej siostrą, w której ona już troszeczkę inaczej opowiada o całej sytuacji. Nadal nie widzimy, żeby czegokolwiek ona żałowała, bo wydaje mi się, że jest to też takie bardzo pozbawione emocji, że w rozmowie z własnym mężem on się jej nie pyta, chociaż może takie rozmowy były, tylko nie zostały wypuszczone do internetu jak ta. Nie pyta jej się, dlaczego to zrobiłaś, dlaczego, co się dzieje, co ci jest, tak? Czy, no nic takiego. Tylko właśnie bardziej dyskutują na temat tego, co będzie dalej. I ona jakby nie zdaje sobie sprawy z tego, co zrobiła. A teraz zapraszam do przesłuchania troszkę dłuższej konwersacji z jej siostrą.
Did you see that Jodie pled guilty today?
I did see that, yes. Is that a relief for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a big relief. It's a big relief. There would have been positive the other way too. Had she not pled guilty, there's enough evidence that she could have been convicted for life. But that would have been messy. It would have been really messy, and the kids would have. So
do you and her get the same outcome no matter what now, or is there a chance that it would be different?
That's a really good question. That's one that I've asked Lamar. No, we can still have different outcomes. So Ellie asked a little bit about this. I wrote it out in a text to her. But so the next thing that will happen is I will fill out and she will fill out probation and there's another P, paperwork. And basically you go through your history and you tell them your history, which there's no history on me. There's nothing, no criminal history, no mental health history, nothing. And I'm also hiring a professional to do a mental health evaluation, just to say she's good, like there's no mental health problems at all. And then that will go to my probationary board. Jody, she can lie on her paperwork, and she probably will. I don't think she's going to give them her history. But I think in the interview it's going to be apparent that she's mentally ill. And so that will affect how long someone, because they're looking, how repentant are you? How much responsibility are you taking? How are you aware that what you've done is wrong? And she's not. The only reason she pled is because she didn't want to do life. She knew I would testify. The other thing is, on my plea deal, when I come up for probation, the prosecuting attorney can, will often, if they think that you're a danger to society, will talk to the probationary board or write them a letter saying, I think she needs to stay where she is. He's going to stay neutral and not write any letter when my probation comes up, which is a really big deal. But for her, he's not going to stay neutral. So we can come up to probation, and I can get off on probation, and she may not.
So what does probation look like? Like, what does that all entail?
It can look like several different things, I think. I'm still learning about this, and I think I never realized how complicated it is. I always thought you pled guilty and they tell you how long you're in.
Yeah, there's a lot of terminology to know.
Yeah, and half of the stuff that is said goes over my head, and then I have to go, I come back and I ask the girls here, I'm like, what does this mean? What does this mean?
Yeah.
But probation could look like going home. Like, you could go home. Sometimes, it might look like going home with restrictions, like you can go home, but you need to live with somebody who's responsible and you can't be around certain people. Like, they may say you could go home if your parents agree to house you, but you can't go home to where your kids are living. It could look like something like that. Or it could look like something where I have an ankle monitor. Or it could look like you can go home if you pay a $10,000 fine. Or maybe it could look like instead of serving the rest of your time, we'll give you some good time and you can go home in half the time. So I think that probation, getting off on probation, I think looks like there's several different ways that could happen.
Oh, I see. That's good to know.
Yeah.
And is that usually after you've already served some time then?
Say that one more time.
That's after you have served some time?
Yeah. And I don't know what that is going to be. I don't know if it's... One of the girls said that it would be for me 6 months, but I've also heard it could be 4 years, and some people serve several years before they ever see their probation board. So I'm really still, I could be in there 4 years, I could be in there 30. Like, I really don't know.
Yeah. And that will come in February?
On February 20th.
Okay.
Yeah. And the news that I saw today, Jody's sentence hearing is also February 20th. So I'm going to make a request that we be transferred in 2 different vans. I don't think they're going to accommodate that.
Oh, do they? Okay, I see.
Yeah, when I went to the courthouse last week, what they do, they did this when they transported me to Utah County as well. They pull all the girls. There's only 2 housing here for girls. There's not very many girls here, but there's many for the men. And so they take the girls and they put them in a cell together, in a holding cell, to wait, and then they get all the men together and they put all the men in the cells, and then they start putting on the ankle bracelets and the chains and the everything on the men while you're sitting in the cell with these women you're going to the court with for an hour, and you're sitting with them, and then they pull the girls out and they line you up, and then they put the shackles on you, and then they take the men out to the van, the men's van, and then they take the women out to the women's van, and then you drive to the courthouse together, and then they take you out.
How far away is your place from the courthouse there in St. George?
30 minutes, 40 minutes.
Okay.
And then you sit in a cell at the court. So if someone's hearing's at 9, this is what happened to me. There was a girl that went with me, and her hearing was at 9, but mine wasn't until 11. So she went in, and she had like a 5-minute hearing. And then we sat in the cell and talked for 2 hours until it was my turn. And then we rode back together. So you pretty much spend several hours together, whoever's going to the court that day with you.
Interesting. So that means on February 20th, it would be you and her going together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When was the last time you talked to her? Was it that day?
It was when we were arrested.
Okay.
Yeah. I left early in the morning to go to a dentist appointment with Julie. We left at like 3 in the morning, and she called me sometime in the morning, and so I went back down. But when I got to the house, I mean, it looked like the movies. There was a red fire truck, there was a black van with tinted windows, there were 2 ambulances, there were 20 cop cars. I mean, it was.
Did you just sit in your car?
No, I pulled up and found a spot to park. She lives on a cul-de-sac. I parked in the cul-de-sac, and I walked up, and the driveway was just full of cops, and I just walked up to the cops, and they said, "Are you the mother?" And I nodded my head, and so they took me and put me in the casita, and I sat there for a couple hours. I just sat there, and then they were finishing looking through the house and stuff, I think, and some of the guys were coming in and out with pizza, and so I think Eve was still there because the ambulance car was there. I was eating pizza with the police, and then once the kids were taken in the ambulance cars, then the detective came and patted me down and arrested me, and then took me to the courthouse for questioning, which I didn't. And I'm glad I didn't say anything, because Lamar was really helpful. Like, if you ever get arrested, don't say anything. I just didn't say anything. And she was like,
how did you find Lamar? Was he just assigned to you coincidentally, or did you?
So she has an attorney that she's used for connections, and I called him and no one answered, but then she called him and he said, I only do like business law, I don't do criminal law, but here's a number of 2 people who do that I would highly recommend. And so she gave the 2 numbers, and I got the number from Kevin. I don't know how the numbers got from. I don't know how, but Kevin said, here's your attorney and this is her attorney. And that was the last time I talked to Kevin. It was a couple of days after my arrest. But so I didn't see Jody at all when I went to the house to turn myself in. I didn't see her.
Okay.
And I went, and they took me to the courthouse, and the detective was like, I've got all night, we can talk all night. And I didn't say anything. I just said, I want an attorney. So I could hear Kevin in the hallway talking, and then he left. And when they took me out of the room, they took me outside and cuffed me and said, they cuffed me again, and then they told me you're under arrest and then they told me two of the charges, and then they had me get in the patrol car, and that's when I saw Jody. I saw Jody was also in the patrol car, and she had surgery on her shoulder. She couldn't put her hands behind her back, so then they pulled her out and changed up the way they arrested her so she could drive with her hands in front of her. And then we had about a 45-minute drive to the jail, and that was the last time I spoke to her. We were in the back, and we didn't say a whole lot. I mean, we talked the whole time, but I don't remember really saying a whole lot. We sang hummed a couple hymns, and she was still justifying the whole time. She's like, don't worry, we'll have our day in court. And then when we were booked in, they put us in separate cells, and we've been in separate cells ever since. So.
Okay. Do you hate talking about that kind of stuff? Does it trigger anything, or is it just?
No, I don't. I think it's fun. No, I don't mind talking about it. It's maybe good for me to talk about it. I don't know if you like talking about it.
I was just wondering if it triggered anything. But if you're doing okay mentally, and then that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's I think putting the pieces together and just seeing, like, she knew she was lying the whole time. Like, and it's embarrassing too to like repeat it. It's like, oh my gosh, how gullible was I? Oh my gosh, how much power I gave this person, and I didn't see it. But when I realized, so she had, her attorney's name is Doug Terry, and mine's Lamar, and Lamar, you know, maybe a month into it, he's maybe not even that long, he's like, Jody denies everything. She denies having anything to do with this. And I was shocked. I was like, what? And I'm still telling Lamar, like, you know, all of the justifications and all of the, you know, I'm talking like a criminal. I sound like a mad person. He was so patient with me. He was so patient with me. He would just look at me and, like, kind of dumbfounded, like I'd said 2 + 2 is 7, and I really believed it, and he would just stare at me. I'm like, what am I saying that's so off? And but that's because I really believed it. But then when I heard that Jody was not talking like that, she was denying the whole thing, it told me she knew all along. It's like a little kid who doesn't know it's wrong to pee in their underwear. Like, they don't know. They're not embarrassed by it. It's like, oh, I was supposed to pee in the toilet? Oh, oops. But you get a 6-year-old. You know, you get a 6-year-old who knows they're supposed to pee in the toilet and they're peeing down the heater vent. They're going to try to hide it. And that's when I realized she knew all along, and she's hiding it. And then I was like, crap, what am I son? And that's when things kind of started turning. I was like, she's not been honest. I didn't know she wasn't honest. I didn't know she would lie. And it's like, what else has she been lying about? Where else have I been deceived? What was that?
Oh, no, I was just, agreeing.
Yeah.
You did see it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was just like the little string that started pulling apart the fabric. I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Like, what? So I can talk about it now. Yeah, go ahead.
Lamar was just very, very kind that day that we met with him. It was very time and just visit with us.
Oh, like miraculous.
Yeah. He and his wife.
Yeah, he had a way of like he didn't beat around the bush. Like there were sometimes he would say things that were shocking to me. Like he would like repeat what I said, but he would say it in a different tone so I could hear myself. And he's like, is that really what you think? And I'm like, oh. And he would, but then there were other times that...
You have 1 minute remaining for this call.
Do you want to end the call, or do you want me to call you back? How do you want to...
We can end for today, and then we can always talk again. So...
Yeah.
I'm just really glad that he's there to kind of help you through it. And
yeah. Well, that first night I was in the jail, I just felt really strongly like, I'm sending you help. Help is coming.
Yeah.
And I just felt like that was Lamar, and he's been very, very helpful. I'm grateful for him.
Well, that's what we've all been praying for this whole time. So I'm glad that even it's a different kind of help, but I'm glad it's finally here.
Me too. I'll take it. Like, I hate this, but I'm taking it.
Of course. Yeah. It was good to talk to you.
You have exceeded the allowable time for this call. Goodbye.
No dobra, jeżeli przeczytaliście całą tą rozmowę pomiędzy Franki a jej siostrą, to naprawdę jesteście takim kryminalnym nerdem jak ja. Po prostu uwielbiam słuchać tych wszystkich nagrań, czytać te dokumenty, nawet w swoim wolnym czasie, więc jeżeli wytrwaliście, to naprawdę jesteście zainteresowani daną sytuacją, ale co z tego można wywnioskować? To tak naprawdę była bardzo taka dosyć spokojna rozmowa, w której Franki bardziej chciała powiedzieć siostrze, jak to wszystko wygląda, niż znowu nie mamy żadnego jakby takiego zdania sobie sprawy z winy. Nie ma czegoś takiego. Bardziej ona tutaj skupia się na tym, że Jodie ją zmanipulowała, że nie chce być w tym samym samochodzie. Mówi też, jak to wygląda, jeżeli chodzi o więźniów przewożonych do sądu, że nieważne tam, która godzina, tak, wszyscy jedziemy razem. No i że ona nie chce być z Jodie w tym samym samochodzie. No, domyślam się, że jedna i druga kobieta porozmawiały z prawnikami, każdy obrał tam taktykę, że idziemy naprzeciwko siebie, tak, i że Ruby naszą taktyką jest to, że po prostu Jodie cię zmanipulowała i w to idziemy, więc zrobimy wszystko, aby to tak wyglądało, prawda? Zresztą w ogóle dla mnie to jest tak niesamowite, że prawnicy po prostu często są przypisywani właśnie osobom, które są winne i nadal muszą pracować, przekonując nas, że nie są te osoby winne, nawet jeżeli sami prywatnie myślą, że są winne, nie? To jest takie surrealistyczne. No taka praca, ja wiem, takie prawo i tak dalej, ale no nie wyobrażam sobie być prawnikiem, który jest przypisany, takim wiecie, prawnikiem na przykład krajowym, tak, który jest przypisany do osoby, która popełniła jakieś przestępstwo i ja wiedząc, że ona to zrobiła, muszę stać po ich stronie i robić wszystko, żeby oni wygrali, nie? To jest takie... Niesamowity świat jest po prostu, w którym żyjemy. No ale słuchajcie, to było na tyle, jeżeli chodzi o dzisiejszy filmik. Chcę po prostu wrzucić wam te wszystkie materiały z napisami, które są zrobione za pomocą programu, ponieważ te napisy kiedyś naprawdę zajmowały mi tak dużo czasu, więc jeżeli tam są jakieś błędy, ja staram się poprawić te wszystkie napisy, bo ten program niestety tłumaczy tak, że czasami jak mówi kobieta, to te napisy mówią mówiłem, a nie mówiłam. Więc ja to wszystko staram się zmieniać, ale jak coś mi umknie, to przepraszam. Jest to program, który pomaga mi zrobić te napisy dużo szybciej, niż jak ja bym miała sama je tutaj literka po literce pisać. Więc możecie oczekiwać kolejnych filmików na ten temat i tych wszystkich nagrań, które teraz wyszły. Najbardziej nie mogę doczekać się przeczytania jej dzienników, bo to może być naprawdę bardzo ciekawe. Tylko no to też wszystko muszę mieć przetłumaczone. Najpierw zrozumieć te jej notatki i przetłumaczyć też. Więc dla osób, które nie są 100% zainteresowane tym tematem, to nie martwcie się, inne filmy też się będą pojawiały, ale właśnie do playlisty Franki dodam dużo filmów, no bo wyszły te wszystkie rzeczy. Myśmy wcześniej spekulowali, mówiliśmy tylko o tym, co było gdzieś tam podane do mediów, ale nie mieliśmy tych dowodów, a teraz je mamy, tak jak to było z Deppem, zresztą z moją serią sidebarów, której nigdy nie dokończyłam i nie wiem, czy jest sens dalej w to brnąć, czy chcecie dalej te sidebary, czy też nie. Jeżeli jesteście nowi na moim kanale, to miło mi, że oglądacie i byłoby super, gdybyście subskrybowali. Staram się dobić do 300 000, może w tym roku, może w przyszłym roku, to jest taka wymarzona liczba tutaj moich widzów, chociaż to tak jest niesamowite, że tyle osób ogląda moje filmy. Ja wam dziękuję serdecznie w tej chwili, zapraszam też na mojego Instagrama i do zobaczenia już w następnym filmie. Pa, pa!